Hello, hello, and welcome to another Alan and Heath Sessions with me, Keith Johnson. Today's session is all about SQ and your questions. Welcome, hello, thanks for joining. I see we've got quite a few people in already, so it might be a busy one, might be fun, which is always good. Ian's here, hello. Andre's here. Andre did an amazing video this week, actually. If you haven't seen his videos, they are on YouTube. I'm sure he'll be able to post a link to his channel. But today, this week's one was all about high-pass filters, and it was really cool, really interesting as well. So go check that out. Ian Parham was here. Hello, sir. Hello. Miguel's here. Vishnu and Jayesh as well. Hi, Scots. Anthony is waiting on Keith. Here I am. Wait no more. And Massimo's here. Hi, Mark. Loads of people in. Welcome. So I've got a few questions today, but if you do have any as we're going through the session, just post them in the chat and I will try and get round to them. So it's all about SQ today. I'm going to do another stream next week on Q. So if you've got any Q questions, you could post them here and I'll try and remember them for next week. But probably best to wait until I've got cameras pointed at Q, actually, is probably the best way of putting it. I am still at home at the moment, but you may have seen the new AHMs were launched, and Nicola did a stream this week from our new studio in the office. So this might be the last one from here. Sad times. It's been fun. But hopefully in the future I'll be not in my spare room, in our lovely new little broadcast studio that we've got, which is very cool. Douglas Edwards, hello from Florida. Chilly at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That means nothing to me. All in line jackets. Yeah, I'm baking, but then that's because I'm in a small room with lots of electrical equipment all switched on and lamps and keeping warm, and I've got thick socks. Okay, so let's get some of the questions. So please do, thanks Anthony. please do post your questions in the chat. But I'll go through some of the ones that we got before the session first, and I want to look a little bit today at some data stuff as well, which is good because one of the questions was on that. So if I've done this correctly, I should be able to bring them up on the screen, and I've shortened this first question because I couldn't fit it all on. So it says, truth or fiction, will it damage SQ motorized faders? The rest of that question is, I was told that it will prematurely wear out a fader motor if you reposition faders by pushing them up and down from the side rather than laying your finger on the face of the fader control. Something about when you place your finger on the face and push down gently, it releases the fader motor. Is there anything to this? What say you? What say me? I say, no, that's not going to damage them at all. That's how I use the faders quite a lot. And I can show you what Mark's talking about here. So if I've got a fader and I'm using it with my finger on top, it's all about, maybe you push down on it a little bit. That doesn't really matter. The faders in the SQ are actually, if you look into your SQ, they're actually on a right angle. So they go down and then this way. And the reason for that is that the tracks are then led on their side. So instead of the tracks being like this with something moving over the top of them, the wiper moving over the top of them, they're on their side like that. So any ingress, any kind of dust and dirt and stuff just falls straight through and they just glide kind of nicely. It means they're quieter, it means they can be faster, there's less friction. But it also means that you're not pushing into them when you push down anyway. So there's no kind of motor engaged there. The motor's on like a geared band, I suppose is the best way of putting it. And the way the faders work is that you are positioning them, and we'll look at this in a bit as well, actually. But you're positioning them, and you're sending a message to the control side of things, which just says, "I'm in this position." When you change, it's only when you change mixes or you record a scene or something when the motor gets engaged and is used to reposition the fader. So at the moment the motor's not engaged at all. I can just move that around freely. It's not going to damage it if I move it like that or with the finger on top. It's not going to make any difference at all. So in answer to your question, no, it's not going to damage them at all. It's only, the only thing I would say is don't leave your fingers on the faders when you're changing mixes or recalling scenes, because when you're recalling the scene, the motor's trying to get it to a certain position. You've got your finger on it. It's going to wait a little bit of time, and that could put undue wear on the motors. So if you're flipping between mixes or you're changing layers, just keep your fingers off the faders. Cool. Okay. Next one is from Mikael or Mikael. Michael? Michael? Would it be possible for you to add Nordic letters to the keyboard? Unfortunately, I don't think so. I mean, would it be possible? Strictly speaking, yes. I imagine there would be some way of doing it, but I think it would kind of be a case of where does it stop, and what other letters would we want to do, and being that everything's in English at the moment, we have done some stuff like that in the past. Pop a request on the feature suggestions section of the SQ feature suggestions board on the digital community, and if lots of people wanted it, then we could do it, but I think it's probably not going to happen. So sorry, no. This is a two people would like this. Anything more about colors to the scribble strips or new plugins? So I can't really, I can never confirm or deny anything we're going to do in future at all. And plugins is quite a big one. I've hinted at stuff in the past, but I definitely can't say yes, we're going to do this, or no, we definitely can't do that, because there's some stuff which is like requires a bunch of time put into it and research and bit development and stuff. The SQ, as you probably know, is deep enabled, which means it can run all of the deep processing. So deep stuff, yes, in most cases, it's going to be absolutely fine, and it should make its way to SQ. I'm trying not to say too much. With colors to the scribble strips, again, that's something that has come up every now and then, and it pops up, and then everybody wants the different colors, and then people don't want different colors anymore. It's definitely another one for the feature suggestions section of the digital community, and I would love to see loads of people wanting that, because I think selfish and I want a ginger colour. David Fox says, is it possible to multitrack to computer via USB-B and multitrack on pen drive via SQ drive at the same time? Interesting question. This is something that we would really like to do. I can't say again for sure, because it has to go through test, and we'd have to basically work on it and make sure it's absolutely solid before we said yes, that's definitely fine. But it's something we'd like to do, and it's something that we've looked into a little bit. So hopefully in future, I know that's going against what I just said. I can't tell you what's happening in future, but this is definitely one we really like to do, and there is some discussion about whether or not it might happen. Another one from Wal here. Walter White, yes. Just realised the name. When do you plan to release the Shure and Sennheiser ProFactory presets for SQ? Hopefully this year. That is all to do with agreements and stuff. That's all it's to do with, really. We've kind of got them mostly done. I think they're almost all done, and we just have to do some really boring paperwork, and then we can get them out to you guys. So again, hopefully in the next few months. Edoardo, this is related to the plugin question. So are there any plans on adding the source expander as a future deep plugin on SQ? So the source expander was recently added on DLive, and it's a pretty cool expander. They actually got two expanders. It's very greedy. But two very cool expanders on DLive. And hopefully in future, yes, we will see some sort of expander coming to SQ. Hopefully one of those, because that source expander is really cool, really handy. And another one from Edoardo, who says, any plans on adding PAFL and gain to the gang options? Okay, so this one I know because I lurk around in the digital community. I think I've got it linked somewhere here. Where is it? I did write it down. So I'd say, Edoardo, go and post it in the digital community. But he has already, so I will share that. So if that's something that this is something that you guys want to see, there is the link to that post, so you can add your voice there. And there is one more that we got beforehand, and I'm going to wait, and that's from Florent. But I'm going to wait on that one and see if there's any more questions in the chat before we go on to that one. There's lots and lots of chat going on. Sorry, I got carried away. I was at a different window. Hello, 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 guys, people. Okay, first question in the chat is Luciano. Why the Dante card of the SQ has no flow of 128 by 128? So that is, I guess that's looking, if you look at like the D-Live cards, D-Live Avantis cards that Dante, you've got one model which is a 64 by 64 and one which is 128 by 128. With D-Live, you have 128 input channels. So having 128 by 128 makes a lot of sense. With SQ, you've got 48 input channels. But actually we thought, let's have a few more than that so that we can have like mixes. So you can send some mixes at the same time, send your left-right mix and send everything individually, or you could use it for some inserts as well. And quite a lot of that is to do with just trying to get it in the right, trying to satisfy as many people as possible. Because if we had 128 by 128 card, that port's only 64 by 64 anyway, in fact, which is another issue. But just looking at the card on its own, if we did have that port as 128 by 128 for like Waves and Dante and MIDI, the card would be a lot more expensive because it's to do with licensing and stuff with Alternate. So 64 by 64 was what we decided on for SQ. Soren's here. Hello, sir. Legend. Genius. The man himself. Okay. David Fox has also asked another one here, and I'm happy to answer this because we do get this asked a lot. Should A&H update on availability of SQ desks? So we can't, as A&H as the manufacturer, we can't really comment. I can tell you that there are component shortages worldwide, which you probably already know. There's difficulties with shipping. There's all kinds of difficulties from a manufacturing point of view, but we are still shipping desks. You would need to speak with your local distributor, though, to find out what they've got on order, what they're expecting, what their back orders are like, because in the past 6 months or so, we've had a perfect storm of all the things I've already mentioned, plus a huge surge in demand. So in terms of managing stock levels and stuff, you would need to speak to your distributor to find out exactly what's going on and what the ETAs are at the moment for them. And also whether or not they've already got something in stock, or they know a dealer that's got some in stock that they can put you in touch with. So hopefully that helps. Tom, hi from the north of Norway with 1 meter of snow. That's a lot of snow. I used to live in the mountains. It was beautiful for the first day, and then after a few weeks of it, you kind of go, oh, I'm tired of digging out the car. Okay, let's. This is slightly longer than I can show by the looks of it. We're live streaming from SQ5 and using aux 12 stereo to streaming service as a recommended channel or way to use. Aux streams is a recommended way to use the channel. Just patch it out. I mean, I did do a stream, like one of these sessions, all about streaming and all about how you can do like a post aux fed stream, which I think is usually the best way. You can use a matrix if you want something quick that pretty much follows your left right with maybe a few extras from another mix. But probably go and try and find that session. You can find all of the sessions. Look how smooth that was. Hang on, I've got the link. It's becoming less smooth by the second. You can find all of the sessions. Bear with me. Here. And yeah, there is one all about streaming there. So I'd say can check that one out. But yeah, post-fed aux mix that mostly follows your left-right mix, but you can adjust the balance to compensate for the acoustics in the room. So if you've got a loud drummer, you might not have much of that going through the PA system in the room, but you might want to send a lot of that to the stream. Or you might have ambient mics that you definitely don't want in the room at all, and you want going to the stream. So you can do all of that with an aux. Okay, I've lost where I was now. So many comments. I mean, keep them coming. This is great. I much prefer to go. I know I bashed through these quickly. Sorry. Josh. Hi, Josh. Effects, and they had to patch an output. First to the 16 channel, sort of patch on second channel. Oh, okay. Okay, let's try this one quickly. Right. Had to patch. So, Abhijeet. How to patch output on expander rack. First rack is 24 channel, and the second rack is 16 channel. So I want to patch the second rack. So if you've got a 24 channel, I'm guessing that's the AR2412, and the second rack is the AB168. So that takes you up to your maximum D-snake channels of 40. So what we do with the AR and the AB boxes is we concatenate all of the inputs and all of the outputs together. So I don't have one plugged in at the moment, but I'll try and do my best to show you. If you go to your I/O screen and you go to your inputs and you went to S-Link, this should give me all of them actually, because I've got it connected up to a queue. You would see inputs 1 to 24 along the top there. Input sockets 1 to 24. And then you would see 26, which would be input 1 on your AB168. And that would go up to 32. So that's your first 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What did I do? 6. So that's your first 6. You press the S-Link tab again, and then you'll start from 33. So that'll be your first 6, and then that'll be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, etc. And similar with the outputs, if you were patching to the outputs, you would have S-Link, and you would get, with the 2412, you'd get 12, and then you'd get the 8. So your first 12 are on your AR2412, and your next 8 are on your AB168. Nico, happy 2022. Yes, happy new year. I just realised it's my first session of the year. Happy new year. I hope 2022 brings many, many gigs. Safe gigs. How to set up an SQ to function as a ducker. Whoa. Christian, good question. I can show you very easily. So to do a ducker, you're going to use your sidechain, and you're going to use the compressor ducking function. So I haven't got any music playing on it at the moment, but if I go to my USB 1 and 2 channel, I could go to my compressor, I could go to the library, and I can load up ducker mode. Let's play some music. You won't be able to hear it, so hopefully it won't get cut out. You shouldn't be able to hear it. Where can I play music from? Oh, I could just sing. Oh no, I can't be the duck and the music. What's that? Right. Oh, cool. There we go. We got some music playing. So you've got some level coming in, and I'm going to not self-keyed. I'm going to key it from my shotgun mic, which is way down the bottom. Not that one. That one. So now you can see that my ducker is acting on the USB channels 1 and 2, but it's based on my voice. I should probably turn that off, because I'll forget that it's on, and I'll do something later and I'll get confused. But let's just leave the compressor off entirely for now. Let's just do that. But hopefully, it answers the question about setting up a ducker. Very easy, very, very easy. Some news about SQ4, Tom. No, Tom was messaging me the other day, just so you're aware of why I'm laughing, with requests for a smaller SQ, and even smaller than an SQ5 SQ, which would be cool. I can't exactly. David says, I can't exactly understand the I/O patching. Will it show all of this? I can't exactly understand the I/O patching of USB-B to PC to my FL Studio. Fruity Loops. How to set the individual channels in my DAW and how to take out from the DAW to my SQ5. Best advice I've got for that, David, is to just do everything step by step. So follow the signal path really carefully, all the way to the computer and all the way back. Again, there is a session on setting up with a DAW, and I look at the fact that you've got 32 USB-B. You can think of them like tubes, if you like, that you need to send stuff down. So they're all there, they're all ready to go, but you just need to patch stuff to them. So on the SQ side of things, let's say I want to record from my input channels. So I would use input direct outs. So outputs. So this is all the SQ stuff on the left, and there's my output sockets on the top. So I'm patching from the SQ to USB output sockets, and I want to patch input direct outputs. So those come directly from each channel. So if I wanted to, I could patch, I better not patch, I'm using the mixer. What am I not using? Probably some channels up here somewhere. Well, that's not in use, look, 24. So if I wanted to patch input 1 to USB 24, don't do this, patch them 1 to 1. But you could do this. I've now got whatever is on my input channel 1, over here somewhere. I can choose the direct out point here. So that's in routing, direct out, and my global direct out source is going to be, if I want it really clean, I don't want to record any processing, I can use post preamp, and as you go through, you'll add in those extra bits of processing. So if I wanted to record the whole channel, I could say post delay, then it includes the channel delay as well. So my direct out from input channel 1, doesn't matter what I've got patched to it, whether it's a local socket, remote socket, whatever, but it's the processing channel I've patched as an output. So whatever I can see and hear in there is now going to USB channel 24. So on my DAW, I would pick up USB channel 24, and I can record that and do whatever I want with it. Coming back the other way, I would set up whatever DAW I'm using. I'd probably set up, often use Reaper, but you'd set up those individual channels to send out individually to USB channels that you want to use. Then back in the I/O screen, I want to patch those back to inputs, say. I don't want to patch them to mix external ins, that'll get confusing. I mean, I could just be monitoring them as 2 channels. So if you're sending 2 channels out of your DAW, you could just patch those to a stereo channel on the desk and monitor them that way. If you want to send them back individually, so you can do a mix on the desk, you would just patch the input. So now we're coming from the top and we're going to the SQ over to the left. So that's my USB input sockets on the desk. So it's the PC USB out and the SQ USB in. That's where it gets really confusing. So you're always going from an out to an in. And at the moment it's already patched. So if I sent something to USB 1 on my DAW, it would be coming in the top here, socket 1, and it would be going to whatever input channel I wanted it to go to. At the moment, it's input 1. So what I've done there is I've created potentially a feedback loop. If you get a feedback loop, please contact us using support. It's another amazing segue. Please contact us using support.alan-heath.com. I will post the link. I mean, not just feedback, just any support that you need at any time, you can always contact us using that. Okay, let's go. What about changing, Eric Merton says, what about changing effects variables outside of the effects window? For instance, the intensity of the echo. Putting this on a fader means you can play more direct with it. That is true. You obviously have the sends and stuff. I mean, there's no... you have sends on the faders. There's no control of the effects parameters from the faders at the moment, so it's an interesting idea. If you've got an SQ6 or an SQ7, you do have an amount and a time-based parameter that you can mess with. So on delay, that is the delay time and the feedback amount. So those can go onto soft rotaries. And soft rotaries we have had requested for MixPad inclusion. So possibly that might be the answer to that one, Erik. This ties in with this question just a second ago. So I will do this. A silly question. It's not a silly question. No questions are silly questions. Could probably read the manual for this. Hopefully, if we've done a good enough job with the manual. But hey, that's why I'm here. Otherwise, I would just sit here saying read the manual. But how can I send an unprocessed audio signal from a channel to a designated output, a direct out, as it were? So I've kind of covered that a bit with the direct out that I just showed. But there is another way, because you want a completely unprocessed signal. If you don't want to use the input processing channels, you can patch using tie lines. So these are really good if you know your setup and it's staying fixed. If you're trying to record something where you're changing stuff in the channel, if you want to record processing, if you're changing the patch of the thing that you want to record, if that makes sense, then direct out's a really good option. But if you are just tracking a bunch of stuff, like if you were... so I did this the other day, actually. I was tracking some bands. We knew what the... we knew it was through a D-Live, so I think we had a CDM64 or a DM64, CDM64. Anyway, we had 64 channels, and we set it all up so that they were all tie-lined through from the D-Live through to the SQ, and then I tie-lined those from the SQ straight out to my computer for Dante, and also recorded direct to drive, so I had a backup. So tie lines just take any input socket and route it straight to any output socket. So it's just a one-to-one. It's just a wire. It's like a patch. It's a tie line. It's like a patch cable that just patches any input socket to any output socket. So obviously you can patch one input socket to many output sockets, but each output socket can only come from one input socket. I'm trying to follow myself. So yeah, tie line, you've got input sockets on the left, and then you've got output sockets on the top. So if you wanted to record to USB, what did I use before? 24. So let's find 20. Oh, let's just find another unused one. So 29. So if I wanted to record local socket 1 direct from the preamp, so yes, it includes everything you can see here. So phantom power and the pad and the gain. But if I wanted to record that straight through to USB, I would just patch it in tie line. So input socket there, output socket there, do the patch, done. That's it. And that's not touching my processing at all. So my processing is still free to use as I want. But obviously it's completely unprocessed, just a raw preamp signal. I don't think that's a silly question at all. It could be very useful. When a new big firmware updates? Oh, Massimo is asking for the firmware update. We don't ever say when we're going to launch. We do occasionally. We hint at it. There should be one due at some point this year, hopefully. But we don't. The reason we don't say what we're going to include or promise any features or promise a date of when it's going to come out is because it all depends on testing. We could pull features at the 11th hour if we say that one feature is causing issues in this firmware update and we want to get it out. Or the other way around, it might be, look, this needs to go back in for more testing because we really want to get this feature in. It's it's vital that this is in this firmware release, and therefore the firmware release is held up. So we can never say, unfortunately. I'm always anticipating something, though. Be prepared. Okay. This is an interesting one. So Marlowe says, will there be trim pots for every individual channel in a later SQ version? So every input processing channel, of which you have 48, does have a trim pot. I'll show you what happens. So if I'm using USB, it's showing me the trim pot. What am I on? Input 1. That's fine. I can change that. Okay, so at the moment, it's showing me that music that's still playing. I've just realized I'm still playing music. Let's get rid of that. So it's showing me the trim pot, and the preamp control is controlling the trim pot. But you can see when I go into the preamp screen down here, the trim section is moving when I move my preamp pot. If instead that was set to a local socket, like 1, now at the top I've got my gain, but I still have, independent of that, my trim. So all that's happening when it goes blue around the outside is it's moving that up to there because there's nothing to show because it's a digital input. So yeah, so there is, it's already there. Hooray! Will we be able to multitrack to other devices such as the new iPad Pro? Oh, another good question. So SQ is class compliant, which means it works with anything that works with class compliant devices. So yes, I have heard of people using successfully an SQ to record multitrack to an iPad. So you could use it with an iPad Pro. You can use it with a Mac without any drivers. You can actually use it with Windows without any drivers. What the drivers give you is ASIO capability, and also sets up your WDM side of things, so the Windows System Manager devices. But it pretty much is plug and play with anything. You just get some extra stuff with the drivers. Mike's only just joined, but it's taken me a while to get around to your comment. So hi, Mike. Sorry it's taken me so long. Bus compressor. Scott says bus compressor from D-Live would be nice too. It would be nice. Okay, this is another interesting point on USB. The ability to send all 48 inputs to a DAW via USB and not over something like Dante would be very helpful. It would, but we are using USB. We're using the bandwidth of USB. I think something like 90% of the bandwidth we're using for audio, and then we've got a little bit for MIDI as well. But getting up to 48 inputs is a bit of a push. It's not something that we can just kind of switch on, because we've actually got 32 channels going either way. So you've got potentially 64 channels of 96K audio running over USB, which is quite a bit. So yeah, if you do need those extra channels, that's when the kind of audio over IP, Dante waves, or using MIDI in a separate interface kind of comes into play. Oh, that's a cool one. Douglas Edwards says, does A&H offer a sonic shootout of prime stage boxes versus legacy stage boxes? Like a lossless download to hear the prime advantages for studio recordings. I've got some tea in my throat. We don't have anything like that, but it would be pretty cool. It's a good idea. It's difficult because in any of those kind of tests, why is this really catching my throat? See if that works. I'm talking too fast. In any of those kinds of tests, it's really difficult to show. We could show versus some other preamps that we've got and try and set everything up exactly. So, and then I guess you get a good idea of it. But also, you never know what the room is like, what the source is like, whether or not you've got mics that are slightly different. But yeah, if we could do like an A/B versus standard preamps, that might be useful. Good idea. Okay. This is a long question. I'm going to try and go through it. What time are we at? Oh, it's 25 minutes. Paul has sent a longish question. Probably won't display all of it. Yep, let's just cut it off. It's just my eyes. It's async card at show. We follow the tutorials online to set up one as front of house. The others monitors around the DX68 and one of the original. I was going to say audio from front of house to pass through monitor console to mains, but running the DX worked a lot easier. Did I miss something in my setup? Paul, if you've got the shows, it'd be interesting to send any of those shows through to us using the support address, and we can definitely figure out what happened there. I don't think I'll be able to wrap my head around it in the live session. I'm sorry. Hello, we use, David says, we use Mi 500s, and by default, only the first 16 channels send back from the SQ. We are not using a digital snake. So if you've got Mi 500s, they take the first 16 mono or stereo channels that are patched through to them. So when you're in your I/O screen and you're patching again, so we've got outputs, and maybe you're sending input direct outs. By default, these we patch through. There we go. So that's the default patching. So if I had a Mi system connected either through another box, through DSnake or through GX or directly, this would all be lit up. Say Mi is available. Mi is available. That's a funny sentence. And by default, it is patching the first 16, and by default, the first 16 are mono. So that's how you'd get your first 16. But you can patch anything you want to the Mi. Okay. The preamps of the GX48, I see the conversation going on. They are very good. The primes are just a bit magical. I've got a question in Spanish. I'm not going to try and answer the Spanish question because I don't speak Spanish. But our support man, Rafa, has got you, Louis. So, or Luis. So please contact us, and I'm sure we'll be able to help, or contact your distributor. Any helpful documentation to program MIDI to set effects to a specified channel insert and recall a saved setting? Interesting one. You would do this and recall a saved setting. You would do that with scenes, Barry. So you can use program changes to recall a scene using a combination of the MIDI recall for the scene and the scene filters. You can pretty much do anything like that. Can I use the SQ series desk as a front of house using AR? I don't want to use these in a monitor desk. Yeah, why not? So you can connect up a Q and an SQ. So you would clock the SQ to the Q because the Q can't have another clock. So that means all the digital connections are synchronized. And you would have to fit a S-Link card in the SQ to have your second connection to the AR2412 stage box. So you'd have one cable running front of house, all the way from the stage, to front of house. And then you'd have another cable running back to monitors. But then, yes, you could follow the patching that we've got on the knowledge base for Q to SQ, and you could definitely set that up, I reckon. The only thing you couldn't do, no, you could do that. You could use tie lines as well. So you could use the outputs on the AR2412 through the SQ. But yeah, if you need a hand with that, give us a shout. Tracking the channel names, This is what I was going to look at today. In fact, I might. Got lots of questions. So the track names of the files will be the same as the channel names. So part of this is to do with how the SQ works out, how the files are coming back in and where it wants to play them. So it looks at those names in order to know where that channel should be played back to in the USB stream. So if they were called random channel names and then you changed your scene, it wouldn't know where to play them back to, and you'd end up in a bit of a mess. I've actually got, just to show you what is going on. You might not be able to see that, it's a bit small. But this is just a USB driver I've got connected because I want to get to that last question we had beforehand. And in USB multitrack, any of the recordings will be called track 11. So that means if it's track 11, it will play back from USB input socket 11 when you're playing back multitrack. And then you can do what you want with it and route it where you like. But what you can do is pull all of those out and chuck them into your DAW. Or, I don't know if I could do it here. So for example, if you're running a Mac and you press spacebar to do like a preview thing on those files, because we do embed the channel name into the metadata of that file, you can then see which file is which if you want to drop them in one by one. So that's on a Mac. Or you can use like a media player, anything that can see that track name in the is it ID3 tags, the meta tags. So yes, it is embedded in there. It's just not the file name, I'm afraid. Samuel says, "Keep such a good teacher." Well, I think Sam has done some videos as well. I think Sam is quite a good teacher. Quickest way to do virtual soundcheck using last gig's recording. There is a session, Johan, on virtual soundcheck, which I did. Can't remember when I did it. When did I do it? Last year? Lost complete track of time. But there is a session, so go and check that out. The quickest way though is to use input channel patch libraries, to have it all set up beforehand and recall your show, obviously. Josh says, how does one get such a glorious moustache? By being very lazy and not shaving your top lip. It's actually not moustache, it's nose hair. That's disgusting, sorry. Really important question is, what's in the mug? Today, I thought it wasn't going to tickle my throat as much as the lemon ginger I had before, but it's Earl Grey Rooibos, which is my favourite tea of all time. Jurrie says, where can we get our hands on merchandise of A&H? Contact your local distributor, and they can contact us for some of the stuff that we do. But they also do each distributor. We give them all the artwork, and we work with them to do stuff that's suitable for their region, or if they think it's going to be popular. Maximo says, I love Alan Heath, and it's from Paraguay. Hi, Maximo. I love Alan Heath too. And I would like to go to Paraguay, but at the moment I'm in Cornwall. Someone's trying to call me on Teams, as is always the case. Aha! This is a Q question. So Q question is trying to sneak into the SQ session. Bernabe, if you come along next week, I will answer that question. That's too mean, isn't it? You can't do that. But I will be doing a Q session next week, so you can come along and ask any Q questions. But the 3 stereo USB inputs in ASIO software would just mean that you haven't got the ASIO driver installed correctly, or you've still selected like an MME, DirectX, or what's the other ones? But one of the Windows system drivers, which gives you those 3 devices rather than all of the channels as you'd get with ASIO. Plug in. So I'm really quickly because I'm not going to get through all. Okay, I'm gonna jump back because I think some other people are helping. Thanks, Ian Paramore, and thanks, Scott, for helping with some of these. I'm going to jump back quickly. I'm going to turn my phone over because I think that makes it go to silent or do not disturb. So let's go to this last question that I wanted to get to. So Florent said, can you tell us more information for SQ MixPad scenes management, especially for the working list? And this is something that there's a lot of confusion about. And we do get asked a lot about scene management. No, but I'm going to cough again. Hang on. We do get asked about scene management and what's displayed in current scene and last scene, previous scene. And we had a few questions about that in the past couple of weeks. So I wanted to try and give you a little bit of insight, because I think it's really interesting, certainly before we finish, about how it works in the SQ and what's going on. So I'm going to have to trust that you can see this, because it's a little mini PowerPoint presentation. So if I go over there, can you see it? Can you see it? I think you can see it. Okay, so this is a concept that we've talked about before in our digital mixing concepts session. So you've got your SQ, and you can break that up into 3 parts. So you've got your I/O, which is connected to the core, the XCVI core. And you've also got control, which is also connected to the XCVI core. So that includes all your remote I/O, your local I/O, and your digital I/O, everything you see in the I/O page. And the XCVI mixing core, that's where the magic happens. Just don't forget, that's where the magic happens. That's the only bit that's doing the magic. That is where all of the magical processing happens. That's the only place that audio is, really. You've got everything going in from the I/O, getting into the core, stuff's happening to it, and then it's going out again. But all the settings of that core and what's going on in the current state is all from the control side of things. So let's get rid of I/O for now, because we know about I/O and I want to talk about control. So the control can be broken up a bit more into the surface UI, so the user interface that you can see and touch and twiddle and poke. And then remote interfacing, really, which is via all the apps and the MIDI. And then you've got this kind of stored current state. So there's only ever one current state of the mixer, and these controls are controlling that current state. So when we've seen in the past where people have had dodgy routers and stuff, and people say, oh, my touchscreen's frozen, or like something's gone laggy, or something's weird, or my metering on my apps is funny, and people say, oh, unplug your router and it'll carry on. That's because whenever you're changing that current state from anywhere, where it's the surface or the remote apps or whatever, it's then changing and sending out its state to all the other apps and all the other bits and bobs. So if that connection here, can I switch this back on again? Yeah, let's go there. This connection here, if that's dodgy, then this can also be affected, because this hasn't updated fully and said, oh yeah, I've sent my messages over here. Sent my messages over here and they've come back and everything's fine. So that bit can slow down as well. So that's the explanation for that. This is really useful for troubleshooting, just kind of imagining it like this. So the XCVI is all based on what the current state is. So that's you can't see the current state storage. You can't see the XCVI core. You can only see the surface UI and the remote UI. So that's the only thing you've got to tell you what's going on in the core. But you can also change that via this store and recall of scenes, libraries. If you want to change the PEQ and you load up a library, you're changing a chunk of that current state. If you recall a show, you are changing all of that current state. If you recall a scene, then you're changing the mix, you're changing a bunch of the parameters, and it's just the equivalent of twiddling all the knobs and making all those changes. So with that in mind, I can escape that now, hopefully. Do I want to keep my ink annotations? Not really. Let's go back over here quickly. You can see where stuff is stored. So I've got a USB drive connected that I've used to store MIDI configurations, Q shows and files and recordings, and SQ. By the way, you shouldn't do this because things can get messy. But I don't mind. I wouldn't do this if it was really vital. So in the SQ folder, we've got libraries. That's all your library files that you can see on the desk. Scenes, that's all your separate scenes that you've stored. Shows, which we'll get onto. Multitrack recordings, USB playbacks, that's stereo playback and stereo record. If you go into shows, you then get these, and you're like, oh, what are these numbers? So if I open up that, what I've done with the working directory, which is I think what somebody was asking about, was Florent was asking about, I've set that up to my USB drive, and the folder is AHSQ in that drive. So now I can see all the shows in there. So I know that Keith's SQ in April 21, I should really back up more often. That's just my little streaming setup here, is number 4. So if I get rid of that again, I can go into number 4. And now I've got the library files I've saved in there. So blah, blah, blah. NV data, which I'll get onto, and then all the scenes that I've got stored, and a show.dat. Now the show.dat, if I wanted to find out what that was and I just had the USB key, I can do open with Notepad. And magically, just made it a bit smaller, tried to find it. It says Keith's SQ April 21. Great. So now I know that that's what the show is. So that's where you can find that show. This is just if you don't have the MixPad, or you don't have a console. The NV data, that's the current state. So you'll see it's the same as the scene. So when you change the scene, you're changing that NV data. But you've also got all this other stuff going on. So it loads up all of those scenes when you load a show from USB, and it also loads up all of these libraries. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of cover that a little bit because people were asking about whether or not it's kind of like thinking you're in a file when you're doing something, but actually what you've done, it's not like opening a file on a computer. It's more like you've replaced everything in the current state with all the settings that you stored in a scene. So you're only ever working in this one area, but you're choosing what you recall. Hopefully that helps at least one person. I'm going to try and get back to your questions now. Sorry. Brian Simmers, this is an interesting question. I assume if you're using a mix of timers and channels to an output that you will have some timing phasing issues. Yes, you can do. So we probably all know that the analog in to analog out on an SQ with or without all processing enabled is less than 0.7 milliseconds. If you change the direct out pickoff point, you will get a shorter or a longer latency because it comes straight from that point and goes straight out to USB or whatever. If you take something from a matrix, so all mixes are aligned, all inputs are aligned. So an input to a group to an aux would be the same timing. But if you start using direct out, so you're taking it slightly earlier, and hang on a minute, so a mix of tie lines and channels to an output. Yes, and tie lines, they're coming before all of that processing. So they are going to be the earliest. So yes, you do have to watch out for that. Be careful if you're trying to do recordings and you're running through a load of mixes and then you're trying to sum them together again later. Don't do that. Just run them through a channel and don't put any processing on. That's the best way of doing it. Yep. Oh, it's brilliant. So many people. I thought there was still loads and loads of questions, but lots of people have helped other people. So thanks. Ranjith, this is. Could you help me with Matrix Out? I would try and explain it as simply as I can because it confused me when I first started doing audio. I didn't quite get the idea of. I could get a mix, but I didn't quite get the idea of matrix. So all a matrix is a mix of mixes. We do have a diagram that he's going to find. But a matrix, in the same way as you can mix a load of inputs and send them to a mix, to an aux or a group, a matrix is just taking those groups and auxes and left-right mix and sending them to another mix, which you can use for extra processing, or you can combine a couple of auxes. It's often used for just kind of a bit of routing management, but it's also a handy way to do some extra processing afterwards for like a stream, for example. I can't find that link right now, but there is on our knowledge base, it's called Basic Signal Path Diagrams, I think. At NAMM 2022, is Alan Heath coming out with any new mixing products? No idea. No idea. Again, we can never say what's coming or what's not coming. We're always working on new stuff, which is cool. But we can never say when it's going to be out until very close to when it's going to be out. So it's a surprise for everyone. Okay, so Andre, I'm really sorry. I've just seen you posting about Waves. Waves is still behind on updating drivers for M1. We've done a bunch of testing with M1. We're pretty good because we're core audio compliant or class compliant. So anything that needs to be fixed would actually be at their end, because we don't need to change anything for the plug and play stuff. But yes, Andre, in response to your question about Waves, we don't often hear from them. I think it's similar with them, where they're working away, beavering away at stuff. So they are the best people to ask about any driver stuff or anything that is Waves only. So we do the hardware with them, and we work with them for that. But anything that's software based on the computer or Mac M1, all that kind of thing, definitely ask Waves directly, because they will have the best idea. Christopher says, is ANH planning anything new for Avantis? I have no idea. Jack will be along, though, in the next couple of weeks doing another session on D-Live and Avantis, so you can ask him. And I can tell you what he'll say, though. He'll say we can neither confirm nor deny anything's coming for Avantis ever, but it obviously is. So, DAW integration, do we have support in both directionally using automation from DAW to control SQ EQs or load EQ automation? Wah. It's a fun thing. So automation from a DAW, we have a MIDI protocol available for SQ. Load SQ automated into a DAW and edit it. So yes and no. Not everything on the SQ is controllable via MIDI. You have levels, mutes, assignments, panning, and balance. Soft keys, so you can do kind of by proxy stuff. So whatever you've set your soft key to, you can then trigger that soft key via MIDI. And what else is there? Scene recalls. I'm sure there's some other stuff as well. But anyway, it's not everything. It doesn't include EQ, I'm afraid. But in terms of the level automation, you can record that in. It's NRPN. You can have the pin. I can send you the link. I don't know why I keep singing instead of speaking. My whole life is a musical. There is the SQ MIDI protocol. Okay, I'm going to skip on a bit because I'm going to run over, and I don't want it to go on for too long, even though I'm having so much fun answering all your questions. Okay, let's see if I can pick up maybe one or two more. What they're going to be? Oh, interesting. Nope, not that one. Okay, I'm going to answer this one. So it's quick and easy. Question from Brazil. For corporate purposes, is there any auto mix on SQ series such as Dan Dugan? We do have a deep AMM built in on SQ. So it's in utility. I remembered the right one. I get these mixed up sometimes. Auto mic mixer. And you can see here we've got 2 AMMs, and you can combine those as well. So if I go to input assign, number of AMMs, I could assign those. Yeah, that's fine. So I've got 1 AMM. So I could have one 48 channel AMM running on SQ with every input. Or I could have 2 running independently, which can also be very handy. And all I have to do to assign them is drag and drop. So let's say I've got 4 people talking with lapel mics, and I just want to reduce background noise. Fine, I'll just do that. I set it like that. Probably want to set up my filter. I'm going to leave AMM follow fader on. Filter's probably all right for speech. I think it's kind of default for speech. And you'll see when I go here to processing and I select the channel with it on, it says AMM is active on my input channel 1. And I'm all good to go. The way it works is that you can change the contribution to the calculation for the gain sharing. So it's a gain sharing algorithm. In fact, let me just stick in. So I've got those 4. Got a light reflecting on here, so I can't quite read it from where I'm sat. So I'm sticking my vocal mic in there as well. And that means I'm going to go to my overview now. In fact, let me turn it down a little bit because it's just picking up any noise at all. It's because I've got the silence on the other channels. Oh. But you can see that it's assigned all of the gain to me because I'm the only person speaking. So it's done what it's supposed to do. It just doesn't. I just need other voices to demonstrate with. Yeah, so you can switch them on and off. You can do this on soft keys. So if it's not part of not part of the calculation, the gain is then equally shared between all of them. If it is part of the calculation, it's only going to my voice. You can switch in and out whole AMMs as well. So yeah, it's pretty powerful and it's deep, so it's all built into the channel, so you can switch it in and out instantly without any change in like latency or without having to send it out to another box and send it back in again. It's all just built into the channel. So really, really quick. Yeah, really good. Love it. Use it a lot in theatre, actually. I have done. Can you copy and paste? Ian, I've got a question. Can you copy and paste all the libraries between shows quickly in the directory? Yes, you can. So I've still got that open. It will number them in the order that they've been stored in the show file or in the console. But you can copy those out and you can renumber them. There's no issue with you renumbering them. So if you go, I want to combine some libraries from this show and some libraries from another show, you could just go through and label them, and you can see there you've got 3 digits to work with. So what I'd often do, or what I have done in the past, is gone that one, instead of being 000, I'll just say 0. I'll just say 100, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, etc. And then from the other show, I could say 200, 201, 202, etc. And then you can dump them all in the same and it will pick them up. So that should be fine. All right, I'm going to stop. Because my throat's gone funny. I'm going to just start coughing in a minute, and then it'll just be me coughing and spluttering and going, SQ, I can't help anymore. But I will be back next week for a Q session. See, it's just gone. I'll also be getting some cough syrup. And I'll be back in a month or so for some more SQ stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really fun and really full on again, which I love. If you have any questions in the meantime, do contact us using support.alan-heath.com. We also have the digital community where we're always hanging out, which is... In fact, I'll send you, because I did see some feature suggestions, I'll send you the feature suggestions link and you can go from there and explore. And yes, any other questions, just give us a shout or speak with your distributor and they'll be happy to help. Thanks so much for being awesome, and thank you to all the guys as well who were helping me today. And go and check out Andre's videos as well, because they're really cool. See you again soon. Ta-ta, bye.